Every morning when I walk into my office, the blinds roll up, the lights come on, the whole room just wakes up with me. When I kick into focus mode on the Mac, the blinds drop, the lighting shifts, and my entire environment changes around me. When focus mode ends, the blinds come back up and the lights reset and I'm back into my regular office environment. And then at sunset, the blinds close automatically so nobody walking through the park behind our house can see it. These are SmartWave Shades, and they're generally one of the best smart home upgrades I've made in my office. I want to show you what they can do, how they integrate to Home Assistant, how to set them up, and then I'm going to explain why you'll either be able to set them up in 5 minutes, or why you could end up burning a whole day trying to get Matter over Thread set up. Let me start with the fun stuff, the automations, because honestly, this is the reason why you'd want these blinds in the first place. The first automation is my morning routine. I've got it set up so that when I come into my office for the first time after sunrise, the blinds come up and the office lights turn on. And it gives me this really satisfying feeling of like everything's powering up, everything's warming up, you're about to get going. It's a really nice way to start the workday, and it feels like my own personal little boot up sequence. The second one is the sunset automation. So we're back onto a park, and if my office light is on and the blinds are open after dark, people can just see straight in. And if I've left the office door open, they can actually see all the way through to the bedroom, which is not ideal. I could fix that with net curtains, but I'm not really a net curtain kind of guy. Instead, as soon as the sun sets, the blinds automatically come down. Problem solved. No one can see in. I don't even have to think about it. And then the third automation, and this is the one that I'm most excited about, is focus mode. So when I activate focus mode on my Mac, the blinds come down and a few of the lights in my office change. The idea behind this actually comes from a study back in the 70s, which was the grounding for stimulus control therapy. It's often discussed in the context of sleep and insomnia, but you can actually apply the same idea to deep focus. The concept is that when you're in the same physical space all day and you're trying to switch between, deep work and then meetings and emails, or if the exact same locations where you play video games, it's really hard for your brain to make that contextual switch. But if you physically change your environment, it helps signal to your brain that you're in a different mode now. There's some other neat things this automation does as well, like sends a silent notification to my phone, which then uses Tasker to turn on Do Not Disturb on my Android phone. But I'll get into the details of that in a different video. All right, so let me talk about the actual product. SmartWave Shades gave me a discount code to get the blinds for free in exchange for a video. No promises were made. It's my genuine impressions of the blind. What arrived was a solar panel, the controller, a couple of manuals, all the fittings and screws to mount it on the wall, and of course the blind. And actually the first thing that stood out to me was the packaging. It was really well done. They've got even screws in the top of the packaging holding everything secure so nothing rattled about and nothing was loose. It just immediately set the tone that they cared about the product, and unpackaging the blinds gave me the same impression as well. Everything felt really solid and everything felt really well built. Now, in terms of blind types, there's a couple of different mounting options. You can get the blinds that sit inside the window alcove, or you can get the ones that go outside and actually get mounted onto the outside of the wall. I went for the outside mount, and the reason for that is I've got these metal girders in the wall around the window that are an absolute nightmare to drill into. So mounting outside of the alcove just made a bit more sense for me. The brackets themselves look like they're actually universal and would work for both inside and outside mounting. It's no big deal. It just means that there's more holes than are actually needed, but they sit out of sight, so it didn't really bother me. Once I read the instructions, they were super quick and simple to mount. It took me less than 15 minutes. Now, I will admit I was a bit of an idiot here because I didn't read the instructions and I just cracked on and made a bit of a mess of my wall without reading the instructions first. Maybe it was a bit of a bloke thing to do. I would say I've learnt my lesson, but I'll probably do it again. As soon as I actually looked at the instructions, they were really well laid out, really clear. I went for blackout blinds, but if you have a look on their website, they've got loads of options, different types of slatted shades, blackout or less blackout, lots of different color options, so there's plenty of choice there. The controller is really straightforward. You've got an up button, a down button, and a pause button. Press down and the blinds go all the way down, press up and they go all the way up. And anywhere along the path, you can just hit the pause button and it'll stop right where it is. Simple and works exactly how you would expect. When you set them up, you set the top and bottom positions, and they stop at those positions when moving up and down. So you can just press the button once and then let them do their thing. You don't need to hold the button down to make sure it goes all the way to the top or the bottom. Without the solar panel, they say that the battery will last from 4 to 6 months, but obviously that's going to depend on the size of the blind and the amount of usage that you have. So setting up the blinds, there's 2 ways that you can put it into pairing mode. You either press the little pinhole with a paperclip or something similar 3 times in quick succession, or you can hold the up and down buttons on the controller at the same time for about 2 seconds. The light then flashes orange and it will stay like that for a couple of minutes while you pair. The blind jogs up and down briefly as well to indicate it's in pairing mode, which I thought was quite a nice little touch. One thing worth mentioning, if you leave the power cable plugged in, the light goes solid green, which can be a bit confusing if you're trying to get it into pairing mode. So just unplug the cable first and then the lights will operate as you expect them to. And I have to give a shout out here to SmartWave Shades because their documentation is genuinely excellent. They've got really comprehensive written guides and video walkthroughs for basically everything. So setting up, resetting, pairing, you name it. They use Matter over Threads, so I will quickly run through how to set them up in Home Assistant. It only takes a couple of minutes. Do note as well, something like Home Assistant Green supports threads, but doesn't have a radio. So you will also need a thread border router to get them working. I will also explain a little bit later in the video the absolute nightmare that I had trying to get this working through Docker containers on a Synology NAS. Don't do that. Go the route of using some dedicated hardware if you want to save yourself a massive headache. Okay, if you go into settings and devices and services, you can just add Matter fairly quickly by selecting Matter, going into Matter and using the official Matter supervisor add-on. If you're running in something like Home Assistant Green, it will be running a supervised version of Home Assistant, which basically just means that it's going to handle all of the Docker containers and stuff for you, and you're going to get it in the form of add-ons instead of having to spin up separate Docker containers. So hopefully you've gone this route based on my advice. So you're just going to hit submit and you will end up with Matter installed here that you can see, and I already have my SmartWave Shades window covering set up. And the other thing you're going to need to do is to go and add integration, search for threads, add threads. It's telling me I can only have one because I've already added it, but this is what your thread integration will look like. And if you go into your settings, you can see I've got my thread border router set up. I'm not going to go into the details of how to set up thread border routers. There's some things you need to be aware of, like syncing thread credentials in your Home Assistant companion app. There's a ton of stuff on the internet already telling you how to do that, so I'm not going to go into details. Once you have that set up, you can add your SmartWave window covering, and these are basically the controls you get. So you can say, tell it to go up and down, and effectively the pause button. This is what you get on the remote. One of the ideas that I had was I could potentially do something like set the blind state based on the battery level. Maybe on a Sunday or something, when I come into the office, it could go into that kind of state. If it's 50% battery, it could go halfway down. I thought that would be kind of cool, just to give me a rough idea of what the battery level could be. And, you know, if the blind gets to the point where it's progressively not opening, I could know there's maybe something wrong with the solar panel and it's not going all the way up because it's not back up at 100%. I thought it was a neat idea. So all of that looked pretty straightforward, right? Blinds arrived, mounted them, paired them, and set up some automations. Done. Here's the thing. Before I got to that nice simple pairing experience, I spent an entire day in what I can only describe as a downward spiral. If you run Home Assistant in Docker on a Synology NAS, this next bit is very much for you. I ended up talking quite a lot here, and I figured it wasn't particularly interesting for the video. If you want to get into the details of all the problems that I had setting this up on my Synology NAS in a Docker container, go and check out the blog post. I publish a blog post that goes with every video, and I'll go into a lot of the details there. So I've now gone full circle from dedicated hardware to run Home Assistant to Docker, and then now I'm back to dedicated hardware again. The takeaway here is simple. Don't fight your NAS. If you want Matter over Threads, just get dedicated hardware. So to wrap it up, the SmartWave Shades are brilliant. They're well built, well packaged, and the documentation is excellent. The controller is simple and satisfying, and the automations they enable, the morning routine, the sunset privacy, the focus mode, They generally make a difference to how my office feels and functions every day. I've wanted to automate my blinds for a while now, and I'm happy that I went with SmartWave Shades to do it. Just please learn from my mistakes. Do not try to run Matter over Threads on a Synology NAS in Docker. Get a Home Assistant Green or some other dedicated hardware that runs Home Assistant OS and has Bluetooth, and save yourself the pain. I'll link everything down in the description: the blinds, the solar panel, Home Assistant Green, and SmartWave Shades documentation. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.